Welcome to the Back to Life podcast, where we explore living well, loving well, and being well. I'm your host, Nicole, and I invite you to tune in for inspirational conversations to get you back to life. Let's get started. All right, welcome to the final episode of the REFOCUS series on the Back to Life podcast. I'm your host, Nicole, and today we are exploring prepare. Where are you now? So over the last 2 episodes, we've paused to reflect, we've pondered our direction, and now it's time to create a path forward that honors both our aspirations and our emotional reality. This step is about grounding yourself in the here and now, setting yourself up for success, and building habits that align with what matters most to you. So there's this moment I experience every time I'm about to start something new. My heart beats a little faster, my mind races with all of the possibilities. And somewhere in the background, I hear this little voice that goes, but what if? You know that feeling, that mixture of excitement and uncertainty that comes with taking a new step forward. The interesting thing is that feeling isn't just nervousness. It's your emotional compass activating. It's telling you that you're about to step into growth territory. And sometimes that can be scary. But preparation is the bridge between dreaming about it and actually doing something. But before we get into this, let's do a quick grounding exercise that I call the present moment inventory. And this is just something where we just ground ourselves in the here and now. So take a deep breath with me. In through your nose and out through your mouth. Notice 3 things. I want you to notice what emotion is most present with you right now. And I want you to think about what behavior has been your go-to response lately. And then I want you to consider what small change feels both exciting and possible. You see, preparing for change isn't just about making plans. It's about understanding how our emotions and behaviors work together to either support or challenge our growth. Preparing also means you're intentional about how you show up for yourself, your relationships, and your dreams. Okay, so check this. Last month, I noticed myself procrastinating on an important project, right? And my usual pattern would be to beat myself up about it, make an aggressive plan to kind of quote unquote fix everything at once, and then get overwhelmed and go back to procrastinating. You know, that was the pattern that I'm used to. Can anybody relate to that? But this time I tried something different. Instead of fighting against my emotional patterns, I got curious about them. I discovered that my procrastination wasn't about being lazy or anything like that. It was more about being afraid, just that fear and that perfectionism. The project mattered so much to me that I was afraid of doing it wrong and making a fool of myself. And so this is what I call an emotional pattern mapping. And it's going to be our first tool for moving forward. So what I want you to do right now is take out your phone, or if you're listening to me on your phone, just take out a piece of paper. And let's do this together. Okay, think about a change that you want to make. As you're thinking about that change, we're going to map it out. First, what emotion comes up when you think about this change? Second, what's your typical behavioral response to that emotion? And third, here's the important part. What does that behavior protect you from? Ooh, these are good questions, huh? So what you just created is your emotional navigation system. But here's where it gets powerful. Once you understand your patterns, you can work with them instead of against them. And ultimately, that helps you to move forward in places where you may have felt like you were stuck. So, for example, let's say you notice that uncertainty makes you retreat into busyness because, anxiety grows and you feel like the busyness will protect you from, kind of give you a sense of security or safety or, protect you from the possibility of failure. That's valuable information if you think about it. Instead of trying to eliminate the uncertainty, sorry, can't speak today. You can create small manageable steps that feel less threatening. But before we can do that, if we're looking to move forward, we need to understand where we are right now. So let's do a quick reality check. I want you to ask yourself, what's working well in my life right now? Like, what's going well? What's a win, no matter how big or small, like what's good? And then what's not working, and this is where you identify the habits, routines, or mindsets that might be holding you back. Then I want you to ask yourself, what resources do I have? What do you have? Think about your strengths, your support system. Who's there for you? What are the tools that you currently have that will help you to move forward in the way in which you want to move forward? And then finally ask yourself, what gaps need attention? Now, these could be skills you want to develop, relationships that need a little more nurturing, or areas where you feel stuck. It's important to, kind of self-reflect on these things, because this kind of a self-awareness is key to creating a plan that's both practical and inspiring. And once you know where you stand, it's time to build a foundation that supports your growth. And this brings us to our second tool for this episode. It's called the tiny bridges approach. Instead of trying to leap across like the Grand Canyon of change, we're going to build tiny bridges instead. And these are actions that are so small that they slip right under the emotional radar. For example, if your goal is to write a book and uncertainty makes you freeze, so your tiny bridge would be to write one sentence every morning before checking your email. That's it. Just one sentence. Easy peasy. Seems too simple, huh? So why does this work? It works because tiny bridges honor both our aspirations and our emotional patterns. They create movement without triggering our protective behaviors. So a lot of times, when we find ourselves avoiding things, or, procrastinating or whatever your protective behavior happens to be, we don't realize it's just our body's way of trying to protect us from a perceived threat. It's anxiety happening, and we're trying to move past the stress. But when we make tiny bridges, it helps us not to activate that anxiety and that stress in our bodies, where our behaviors and our feelings and our thoughts kind of coincide to keep us locked in a pattern that doesn't serve us well. Does that make sense? So now let's create a personal preparation map. Think about something you want to do or accomplish and write it down. Set a clear intention, which if you don't know is different from goals. While goals are specific outcomes, intentions are about how you want to feel and who you want to be. It's basically creating that picture in your mind of this is, not only do I want to do this, but I want to be happy about it. I want to, I want to be that girl or that guy or something like that. It creates a picture in your head, and it also, helps, you to figure out why you want to do that. It's not just intending to do it, but why you want to do that. For example, instead of saying, I want to lose 10 pounds, you might say, I want to feel strong and healthy. And that way it keeps you connected to your why. And then next, on creating your personal preparation map, you need to identify 3 emotions you expect to encounter on this journey. Basically, are you going to feel scared? Are you going to feel happy, excited, determined? Like what emotions do you feel, are connected to the thing that you want to do or accomplish? And then I want you to think about 3 behaviors that those particular emotions might trigger in you. And then after you have all of that, I want you to do the most important part, which is to list 3 tiny bridges that you can build based off of the information that you received from yourself. And these things can be your compass. And those tiny bridges should move you closer to embodying, how you want your intention and how you want to feel and who you want to be. Even if those tiny bridges are, they feel impossibly small. Like you're just saying, all I did was show up for 2 minutes. Well, if you showed up for 2 minutes and you consistently did that, then maybe you can show up for 5. So it's kind of like a little motivator. Those tiny bridges motivate you forward, and they create the stability to move forward with and it gives you a little quick reward too. I did it. And we all want a nice little gold star, right? But of course, preparation isn't always smooth sailing. Let's talk about some common challenges and how to overcome them. So there's 3 that come to mind. And I've already mentioned the first one. It is procrastination. And so building tiny bridges can help with this by breaking these, the tasks or the actions that you want to take into smaller steps. And it helps you to focus on starting and not finishing. And it helps to build that momentum once you begin. Second common challenge is fear of failure. This is the point where you got to check your mindset. What's going on in your thinking? You got to remember that progress is more important than perfection. And every step forward is a win. You just got to get started if you want to see something different. If not, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And then the third challenge is overwhelm. We all can relate to feeling overwhelmed at times. And sometimes when we're planning on making a change, we can feel very overwhelmed in the process or just at the prospect of thinking about it. But this is where it's important for us to prioritize, check our capacity, and focus on one thing at a time. You do not have to do it all at once. So it's about reminding yourself about what you're able to do in the moment, which you have the capacity to take on, and not try to do everything all at once. That's a recipe for frustration. And preparation is about progress, not the frustration, not perfection, not any of that. So I want you to give yourself grace as you navigate this process. As we wrap up this episode, I want to remind you that preparation is a gift you give yourself. It's an act of self-care, and it's an act of self-love. And by preparing intentionally, you're setting yourself up to thrive and not just survive. And as we wrap up this whole Refocus series, I want to share something important. Change is not about forcing yourself into a new shape. It's about understanding your emotional landscape and creating a path that works with who you are and not against it. Your patterns aren't your enemies. They're just signposts helping you to understand what needs care and attention, and they can guide you forward once you've attended to them. Your emotions aren't obstacles. They're information helping you to navigate your way forward. Remember, no emotion is permanent. But this week, I want you to practice building one tiny bridge each day. Notice the emotions that arise and the behaviors that follow. Most importantly, I want you to notice how small steps taken consistently can begin to create a new pattern in your life. Remember, you're not just preparing for change. You're preparing for growth that honors all parts of who you are. And that kind of growth, it has staying power. I want to thank you so much for joining me on the Back to Life podcast. I hope these episodes have inspired you to pause, ponder, and prepare as you continue into your year. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and stay tuned for our next series to help you live well, love well, and be well. Until next time, take care of yourself, stay grounded, and keep moving forward. Be well. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts and stories about this series that we're talking about. You can follow us online at our website or on socials, and information about that is in the show notes. Be well.